I think what surprises the most of us is the thought that we actually can experience joy. And one of the things I love is helping women and myself just reframe those thoughts and knowing that we have control over that, nobody else. And I think the most important thing is just discovering you all over again, right? Being open to that and not letting it, not kind of counting it against yourself, but just owning it and embracing it and saying, this is who I am now. So, what I decided to do was take control, take my power back with that, and reclaim my happiness because what I realize is my happiness is my responsibility. But I don't do anything or coach on anything that I haven't at least tried for myself in some way. And life doesn't really have that spark, right? So, it turns into more survival. Like day to day, you're just getting through it, you're surviving the day, but you're not living with that joy that we talked about in the beginning. So I think in those days when you just separate, you're kind of, everything feels so new all over again and not in the best way. And just kind of accepting and leaning into that. So how can this newness still bring me, maybe help me create a life I never knew existed for me? And when we are disconnected, there's like no space for feeling pleasure, feeling joy, and even like the thought of creating intention, you're not even there yet. So there has to be some more awareness that comes on.
Welcome to the Just Separated podcast. Hi, I'm Karen Oman, a thanatologist, grief counselor, divorce strategist, and co-author of the Just Separated workbook. I draw on years of personal and professional experience to guide you through the challenges of your divorce. Together, with our expert guests, we'll equip you with the clarity, resilience, and tools to take charge and move forward with confidence. Follow Just Separated and join us as we explore the many different facets of divorce. Hi, welcome to the Just Separate podcast. I'm your host, Karen Oman, co-founder of the Divorce Workshop. Today we're going to be talking about the 6 obstacles, why joy feels out of reach after divorce. And our expert guest today is Charlene Michaelle Montgomery. Charlene is a certified life coach who helps divorced women over 40 rebuild emotional, mental, and physical strength so they can enjoy life again on their own terms. After walking through her own divorce, she created the Stronger You coaching program and the Emotional Strengthening webinar to give other women the step-by-step support she wished she had. Her work focuses on practical tools, honest conversations, and a safe space for growth. She's especially passionate serving Black moms who are ready to put themselves back on their own priority list. Welcome, Charlene, to the Just Separated podcast.
Thank you, Karen. It's so great to be here.
So you work closely with women over 40 after divorce. In your experience, what are some things that surprises them most about how hard it is to feel joy again, even when the divorce is settled?
I think most, I think what surprises the most of us is the thought that we actually can experience joy. And one of the things I love is helping women and myself just reframe those thoughts and knowing that we have control over that, nobody else. There's something about being in your own circle of control and knowing your own power and taking that back for yourself. So once they start to realize that, then it's like a whole world opens up and they are not only feeling the joy, but they're living the joy. And it's like, where did this life even come from? I didn't even know it was possible. And that's one of the pleasures, many pleasures I get out of coaching women who have gone through those challenges.
So what are the key, like if you think of some obstacles, like I was thinking like my own situation, I would maybe have some guilt feeling joy. So if that comes up, or I was just exhausted, right? So to think I could be emotionally exhausted because of divorce and to actually feel joy, So what are, in your opinion, what are some of the bigger obstacles that we face to feel that joy again?
When I started just kind of reflecting back and looking at the things in the beginning that affected me or that just really got in the way of where I wanted to be, there are 6 main obstacles I noticed that kind of kept coming up. And one of the big ones is like living on autopilot. So what that is kind of you look up and the weeks a blur. I remember I had these days where I drove to work, but it was hard for me to even grasp, like, which route did I take today? Was there an accident? Like, how did I get to work safely and not even remember driving there? So there's a disconnect, right? There's a disconnection. And when we are disconnected, there's like no space for feeling pleasure, feeling joy, and even like the thought of creating intention. You're not even there yet. So there has to be some more awareness that comes into place. And until you get there, you just be kind of in autopilot. Another that comes is being stuck on repeat. Now they sound similar and they kind of are, but when you're stuck on repeat, you ever, I might be aging myself here, but you ever had a record that had a little scratch in it and it just keeps going to the same spot over and over and over? It feels like that. So you're aware of it and you're kind of looking around like, hmm, this feels like yesterday. This feels like the day before. You're arguing with yourself with the same things, the routines just start to feel the same. Not saying that you can't have the same routines, but they start to feel like there's nothing in within the routine that just brings you that um what's the word I want to say, that kind of brings you that spark that you want to have. So it's just awareness without action, and you just start to get frustrated and that comes up, and then that pattern just kind of keeps repeating. And then as we go in, I'll talk about a few things and a few ways you can kind of shift these things if when you notice you're in that space. um, Another one, it may sound like a positive thing, and it can be partly, but it's I call it the comfort crew. And the comfort crew is your homegirls, your friends that you call when you're just kind of looking for some time to go out, or you might meet for brunch, and they mean well, right? They're trying to support you, but they don't quite get it. They don't understand. They don't know why you're still upset. They don't know, like, oh, you're better off. You would, or even if you would have wanted left, you would have wanted left. That why are you mad? Like, why are you sad, or whatever that feeling that's coming up for you? They notice those things and they got you. They'll take you out. And they're kind of doing the same things that you realized you were doing before you got married, and you're just not there anymore, right? So they mean well and they try to take you through the things that you used to work, but they're not quite working. So there's almost like this unintentional pressure to like just kind of remain the same. Like, just get back to being you, do the same things you were doing. But the problem is you don't want to be back to being you. You want to be a better version of you. And your comfort crew doesn't know quite how to do that for you. So, um, like the comfort zone, it just kind of keeps you at that same level and you're not really growing and evolving out of that space. And this next one, I said people might get mad at me for this one because we don't like to admit that this is happening, but it is. It's called a case of the ex. So sometimes, many times, especially initially after that breakup happens, you're still thinking about him. Like, oh, how dare he leave, or how dare he not fight for me, or how dare he do this to our family if you have children, or it could just have been you and him, still a family, right? So that anger or even that guilt about how things played out, about how those things felt when you both decided to leave, or even if one person decided to leave, like all of that kind of is renting space in your mind, and you're putting more thought into it than you really and truly want to. So this can be just when you, especially if you have children and you're co-parenting, right? So you're going to be um, in contact with him more often, but in a different light, in a different way. You're going to be interacting with him and it's going to feel weird. But then at the same time, when you lay your head down at night, you're thinking of how things used to be. You're wondering if you made the right decisions. So all of those things are just playing over and over in your mind. Another one I noticed, I call it running on E. So you're just like on fumes, and you notice there's this, you kind of have some energy. If you're a morning person, I'm a more morning person, and I would have energy maybe the first part of my day, the first couple of hours, but then I always would get this slump. And then it became like this. It felt permanent. It felt like, is this how I'm going to be? Like, I'm going to have some energy in the mornings, and halfway through my day I'm just going to give out. Like, where how am I going to get through the rest of my life like this? It just feels like anything you think about, you want to try to get energy back, just feels exhausting. So you have just like low physical energy, your motivation is low, your mood might be low, and you don't really see that there is something that you can do to kind of get yourself into a space that just feels more energizing. And you don't see a way like, how am I going to get myself out of this? And then the last one that I realized, I hear people talking about their passion projects, their passion, like things that they have, their hobbies, but this is living passionless. So there's nothing that really excites you. There's nothing that makes you feel like, oh, this is something I'm looking forward to. Everything just feels kind of blah. You're not interested really in it, and life doesn't really have that spark, right? So it turns into more survival. Like day to day, you're just getting through it, you're surviving the day, but you're not living with that joy that we talked about in the beginning. You're not living and feeling like you're thriving and getting to that next level. So those are the six that I noticed that came up for me often. And I'm still exploring. And it's been, oh gosh, 17 years since we first separated. But this is a journey that I feel passionate about, and feel passionate about helping women kind of figure out where they are in this, for themselves.
I love them. I love all six, and I love that they're the metaphors of them, right? Because they're not clinical. They're just, this is what they are. And I went, when you're right saying them, I'm like, yes, uh-huh, yes, like to all of them, I'm like, mm-hmm, yes. Which do you find, like, is there one that seems to come up more with everybody? Like, the passionless is, so for my own journey, I went to school before I got divorced. So I kind of started it. I don't think, I don't know if I was planning it that way. So that kind of
Mhm.
helped me have something that I was excited about. But for some people, like some women, they leave or were left, whatever. And it can be really hard to find something they're passionate about. And you or I could, you could say, okay, well, try this and try this, but really it has to come from within, right? I don't know if you've found the same thing with your clients.
Yes, that was one of the major ones, and then kind of that stuck on repeat. Like, what now? What do I do? But even with the living living passionless is like one of the ones that I found myself struggling with, but not realizing that's what it was, because we're taking care of the children, we're working. If you have children, you're working, you're trying to, now your living situation looks different, so you might be responsible for all the bills now. So you're kind of doing the things that you have to do to survive. So thinking about something that brings extra light or spark into your life is not necessarily part of the plan. And we don't know that it can be or even should be. So one of the things that I decided, I was like, what if I could just have fun with whatever I did? Then what would I do? And so this was just a reframe of me realizing that I didn't need the big things, but what simple things that I put into place, or even was interested in. So it started kind of as an interest. And then how can I build on that? Like you said, it comes from within. What would I even be interested in? What haven't I tried in a while? Sometimes you can revisit those things you haven't done in a while. And so I decided to like just go on this, I wouldn't call it necessarily a rampage, but this exploration of and experimentation of things that I'm like, that looks fun. What if I tried that? Do I have this in my area? What have I tried one time and thought, oh, that was kind of cool, but just haven't gone back to? So I started doing that as well. And it's just been interesting. The people I've met, the places I've been, and just kind of the things that have come across as, even if, oh, that was interesting, but I definitely don't want to do that again. So I just said, let me create this list, and I'm making my way through the list as I have time through, as I have my time of the things I want to do just by myself and just kind of reconnecting with me. And so that's one of the biggest one. And then the stuck on repeat, I realized I get so many women that have said like, well, what now? Who am I now without this relationship? Like, how do I get through that? What's the next step? How do I date again? Do I want to date again? And I find those so interesting because it just shows the capacity that we have for things that just opens up to us and the possibilities. And we don't always see them as possibilities because we're stuck in that kind of sameness of every day. And we're not as focused on me. We're focused on those things that we have to take care of, so to speak. So I started doing like maybe a pattern flip, right? So maybe I would try one thing that I thought about. Like if I say what now, then I will answer the question. So I usually let the questions on when you're stuck on repeat, you kind of let those things just keep circling around and around. And instead of doing that, one time I say, well, what now? If I could do anything, what will I do? And I say, well, I would just like to take myself out to a nice restaurant. And it starts with something simple, as simple as that. Or I would like to have a spa day just to myself. Or I would like to go to the beach. Maybe I can walk on the beach by myself and see how that feels. And it can be anything small or simple. It can be changing something in your everyday routine. I mean, even something simple as I have these mugs, right? This one has the letter C for my name, of course, but I have so many of them. I have different colors. I have some in gold. I have some in black, or I'll have one with a saying on it. And it's just like, let me see where I am today. And I will pick a mug that might say joy, or I'll pick a mug that might say cheer. I mean, it is ridiculous how simple that is. But we don't think about some of the things we already have access to that can bring us small moments of joy and get us out of that feeling stuck, right? So when just changing the mug I'm using for today, it becomes, how then am I thinking about my day? Where can I find some joy, or where do I need to bring in some joy, or where do I need to shift my thoughts about my day? And so learning some of these simple techniques and what will work for you is kind of what I enjoy about coaching and bringing that to women, um, and showing them how simple things can just become just a source of inspiration.
So what I was listening to was like there's macro things that you can do, like writing the big list. It's bigger things, but I love it because when you put something down on paper,
Right.
right, it kind of is like a little bit more firm, like to
Hmm.
try to the meetup groups or try bowling or try whatever, right? But also
Right.
what I really loved what you said was when with the micro ones where it's just a, like I love the example with the coffee cups, right? Like, what am I today? And you have a bunch and you can, so you can go out and you can collect cups that make you feel, but I mean, that's your own, but it's like, it doesn't have to be. And I think that's what I'm understanding what you're saying. It doesn't have to be big things that bring you joy, though
Hmm.
we want that for you as well. But it can also be just those little micro moments,
Right.
especially when you're going through those, in the midst of divorce, right? Is that,
Hmm.
and what I want everyone to understand is when you feel that little bit of joy, try to savor that moment too, right? Like,
Right.
maybe you've got yourself a really good coffee, right? And you're like, I'm
Hmm.
going to really enjoy this coffee because I'm going to know I'm in for a day. So I love that. I really love that. I wanted to also mention, I'm wondering if people also have a hard time feeling joy too because of identity, right? Because our identity changes. We used to
Hmm.
be uh, a wife, um, everything, right? If we have children, we were the parent, and that was all big a part of identity. And then when we lose that, or that's that kind of like, who am I now, right? And
Right.
I'm wondering if that's where because I was like that too, like, who am I? Like, for 19 years I was this and this and this, and now I have to slowly change. And I think that could be one of the reasons why people may get like you know, stuck in that. I don't know if
Yeah.
you see that as well.
Yes, and I mean, I've seen it, I've experienced it, right? I've had that shift, and I had to ask myself some hard questions, and that's where it starts. Like, be willing, one, to ask yourself the questions, and then the harder part is answering the questions. So I thought, yeah, who am I now? But then an even more interesting question came to me of who do I want to be?
Mm.
And from there, I was like, who do I want to be? What does that mean? And I noticed, like, okay, at the heart of me, I am Charlene, period. I feel that with every ounce of my cell, every cell that's in my body. I feel that. Like, at the heart of me, I'm Charlene. And I I'm a mom. And I'm a business owner. And I'm a sister. And I have a big family. Like, just starting at the basics and then blooming out is like, oh yeah, and I get to be these things, and I get to be a life coach, and I get to be a woman who helps divorced women, and I get to um, talk about health and happiness and how to find that joy. Like, once one it's like that one thought that happens and occurs, it opens up the possibilities for others and let them in. And when that your mind starts shifting and moving towards the life you want to create for yourself, like, the more you're like, oh, now what about this? Oh, I never thought about that. Now what about this? I never started out wanting to be a life coach. It just, after my experience, I was like, wait, I actually lost 73 pounds. I figured these things out on my own. I didn't really have anyone there to, like, shape it for me. The only thing I knew is I didn't want to be stuck in despair or depressed or sad or even angry and hurt. I didn't want I know those things would come, but I didn't want to be stuck in those things. And I didn't want those feelings having a say so in my life in that way. So what I decided to do was take control, take my power back with that, and reclaim my happiness, because what I realize is my happiness is my responsibility. And I like to say, you didn't give it, you can't take it. It's mine. I own it. And that has just shaped so much of my experience and really just allowed me to see the possibilities. And if I make a list of something that sounds good, but then as I'm going through, I'm like, you know what? I don't even need that one. That's good. I don't have to do that one. It just starts to shape, and you really, what I love is you really start to understand. And at its lowest level, what you don't want. And we don't often realize the lessons in that, right? Oh, well, I know I don't want that. I don't want that. But then when you're like, well, what do I want? That eventually comes up. Well, from that, I know that from what I don't want, now I can determine what I do want. So I do want joy. How do I get it? What are some things that bring me joy? Whether it was in the past or whether it's something simple that happened last week that never happened before, and it stood out in my mind and stuck there, just planted a small seed that just helped me see that I want more of this. Um, so for
Yeah,
me, that's where that comes from.
I love that what you said there. Do you find it's a practice? Like everybody, everyone's like, you get divorced, you think, okay, so you decide to leave and you feel relief, but then it's like, wait, I have to actually work on this. Like that's what
Mhm.
you're actually saying too, right? It is not just a one and done, it is a practice. And I've said that over and over and over to my grief clients as well, right? It's a work through. It's not a, one time is great, but you need to keep. Do you agree with that?
Oh, definitely, definitely, because practice makes progress. You have to practice it if you want to get anywhere. And the things that I'm talking about now didn't happen right after I got divorced, even though there were things I was working on. Right, you don't lose 70 pounds in a week. That doesn't happen. So I constantly have to put these things into practice. I believe that I am in the highest integrity when I'm doing the things that I coach, right? So I have to be following these things and experience them, at least for myself, so that I can be able to guide others through it. I don't do anything, might do them a little differently, but I don't do anything or coach on anything that I haven't at least tried for myself in some way. Now, whether I mastered it, some things I feel like I've mastered it in the way that I know to keep using it, and I recognize when certain things come up for me to use this specific tool or strategy. Um, but I'm every morning, literally every day, I'm doing something to work on my mindset, to master my emotions, to feel like I'm in a place that I can take myself to the next level, especially when it comes to emotions. So it's always a practice.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, and I want to ask you, do you find that if we practice joy, that it is selfish, that the society views it as selfish?
Listen, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to roll my eyes. Um, listen, it doesn't matter what society views. And I can't tell people that enough. It doesn't matter. What matters is how you want to live your life. If you want to live your life based on society, you are not going to be a happy person, period. And you're going to find out whether it's days from now, weeks from now, years from now, and you're going to get to this place like, well, why am I not happy? Because you're not living by your own terms. You're not thinking what actually brings you joy, even if it's completely opposite of what society believes about you having joy for yourself, about you taking those times and doing those things that bring you joy. So I'm like, well, society, you're not paying my bills. So that means I get a say so in that, and only me. And but I say that because I have worked on that mindset and those emotions that come with that, and really understanding, oh, society really doesn't bring me joy. If I'm living for someone else, then I'm not living. Because what happens if that someone else, society, everything could disappear. And I kind of thought about that. It sounds kind of ominous, but if if everybody else disappeared and it was only me, how can I still find joy within my day? And I think about the movie, what's the movie, Wilson, where he's alone on the island with
Oh,
Tom Hanks,
Castaway.
Castaway. And I think about that movie and I'm like, well, if I was on an island and it was just me and the trees, like how could I find joy in my day? And there's small things like sitting in the sun, like literally sitting in the sun just helps shift your mood. I practice grounding. I told the guy who mows my lawn, I was like, I like uh, a couple of inches of grass because I like to walk in it. It's just a different experience when you're connecting to nature. So I have to make sure I'm finding those little things that bring me joy, no matter what society is saying about them, even if they're saying it's selfish.
I do find that for women in general, we're more of those people pleaser type of people. And I do think
Mhm.
that's why I love what you're saying, because I do think we tend to listen to more what society tells us to do, right?
Yeah.
So it is important that you hear what Charlene just said there, because it is just you. And even if
Mhm.
you have, even if you're co-parenting, you have children, you still need to do this, right? And I love the
Yes.
fact that you said about the grass. I'm a big believer of forest bathing. So if you have some type of forest, get yourself in there and walk in the nature and connect with it, right? So because
Mhm.
I think it's well researched about nature and grass and feet too. There's something about that, right? So
Yes.
there is something, and those are another thing. Those are small joy. I remember when I was going through my divorce, I'd be like, I got to go to the nature. I have to go. I would take my dog and we would just go, and it was healing. And that
Mhm.
I look back now and going, oh, that was really healing, but also a moment micro of joy, right? There was a micro moment
Right.
of joy that I was my whole self. And another thing is mindfulness, right? Is just to be present in the moment, especially when you're going through those, going
Mhm.
through a divorce. So before we wrap up, is there anything that we've forgotten to talk about?
Um, one of the things I do, like reminding myself of is that when you're thinking about the things you're going through, all of these areas, they bring up certain emotions. And it can be hard to deal with your feelings, right? It can be hard to like learn how to process them when you're going through something so challenging. So, like in the morning, you talked about just that mindfulness. I love that you said that. I take Sometimes it turns out longer, but you only really need about a minute or two. Like right when you open your eyes to get up, before you actually get up out of the bed, there's this space of time where your brain is just at a certain level of awareness. And I take that time to tune in. Like I just woke up, but how am I feeling about my day? How is my body feeling about my day? Because feelings are both emotional and physical sensations, right? We get that information from just the things our body is experiencing. And so I just tune in for a few minutes and just see where my thoughts are. And then I try to picture my day going a certain way, whether it's projects I'm working on, whether it's meetings I have, clients I'm working with. I try to picture those in the most positive way possible. And it's not to negate like negative things coming up, like to just that toxic positivity. I'm not in that way, but in a way that I can feel more powerful about how I take control of the things I say and the way I'm thinking about myself. So that's just in that short span of time. I do that. It usually takes about 5 minutes total. But sometimes I just let myself just keep going. And it's wonderful to me and extraordinary how you can, even just with the intentions you set in the morning, just shape your day in a way that feels more powerful versus positive. So when I say the difference between that for me is that you are taking ownership of your thoughts and your actions, the things you say to other people, how you treat them, how you interact, that's all you. And the more you are willing to step into that, the more you know and you start to understand that you have more power and control over your life than you think. And so I think that was one thing we didn't really touch on, but just your emotions are a beacon, like your GPS, your internal GPS. They are there for a reason. And we don't use them enough to help guide us and shape us in a way that feels more intentional. And so I am so big on emotional recovery. And so I use it, one of those things I use every day to just kind of govern and guide how I want my day to go.
Well, I love that governing guide. I think about when you set that intention, right? Setting intentions is really good. I also like when you go to bed too, you can also set some
Right.
intentions as well. But I also like the fact that if you wake up and sometimes you have an anxious, you can feel anxious in your body, at
Hmm.
least be aware that's how you're feeling. So you know that, like, okay, maybe you have to transition with your co-parenting today and maybe you're a
Hmm.
bit more anxious. Well, be aware that maybe that's going to make you a bit more hyper or make you a bit more. So what do you need to do? Well, maybe you need to walk in the grass, or maybe you need to do some breathing techniques before you transition
Hmm.
with between your co-parent, or whatever, like the little tools that you had mentioned too, right? So yeah, I've grown into that too, is being aware of how my body is feeling in my mind, and then I can better know myself. And when I better know myself, then I'm not going to maybe react, because we don't want you to react and we want you to respond, right? That's another
Right.
thing. But I do love that, yeah. And we didn't talk about any. Do you have any little tips you want to give people on how they can feel joy? You did mention a couple already, by writing the list and the intention, setting intentions. And
Hmm.
is there anything, any other tip before we go?
I think just one, like, just start wherever you are. I think there's this big push that we have to do something. Sometimes when you realize it and you become aware that there's a change or a shift you want to make, it feels kind of daunting and overwhelming. But start wherever you are, right? So if one of the ones I shared, one of the obstacles stood out for you, just pick one. Like pick one and pick something that helps you kind of get through that in the moment. And I think the most important thing is just discovering you all over again, right? Being open to that and not letting it, not kind of counting it against yourself, but just owning it and embracing it and saying, this is who I am now. That doesn't mean that's who I'm going to be forever. So I think just starting where you are.
I ask everybody this last question before we wrap up. For someone who is just separated, whether they left or were left, what advice would you give them to help them navigate those overwhelming early days?
Whew, that can be so hard, right? I think we hear the expression take one day at a time, but it's honestly really true. You're taking it one day at a time. Um, if you're focusing on just finding something in your day that feels like it's working with you, something in your day that even if you create it for yourself, that brings you a small amount of joy. Um, so I think in those days when you just separate, you're kind of everything feels so new all over again and not in the best way. And just kind of accepting and leaning into that. So how can this newness still bring me uh, maybe help me create a life I never knew existed for me? And I know that's kind of big, right, to think about. But if you just put the question out there for yourself, then you'll notice what comes up because there's going to be a feeling of like this is impossible or is this possible? And I like when people say in the word impossible is I'm possible. So keep that in mind. Everything that you're going through is showing you what you no longer want in your life and no longer need, and you're going to get to the best part.
I love that. So where you have a 16-week program, I think, and what else do you offer, Charlene? And where can they get in touch with you?
I am on Facebook and Instagram. Mostly you can find me under Charlene Michaelle, and Michelle is spelled Micha, like Michael, ELLE. So there is that distinction. I have my website, thehealthqueen.com, but I'm also um, running a workshop. It's an in-person workshop. So if you're in Columbia, South Carolina, it will be on July 26th. And so I have that right now. And as far as my program, I'm actually offering um, two spots for free right now because I'm revising some things and I want to just really support women in that way and explore how this program can work a little even better. And I want two women to come join me in that journey for free. So right now I have that going on as well.
Sounds great. This topic, you're the first guest I've had on, we've talked about joy, and it doesn't really always coincide when you think about divorce. And I
Hmm.
think what you said today is a lot of things are really, really important that we need to hear, that life is possible, that
Yes.
and what I really liked what you said is you're responsible as well for that,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I loved having you on and doing such good work. And we need to get this message out more about the joy and that we can feel joy after divorce. So thank you, Charlene, for coming on.
Thank you. That is my mission. That is what I've been called to do. So I am determined to keep doing it. And thank you so much, Karen, for having me. I love being here.
Thank you. Thank you for joining today's discussion with our divorce expert. Check out the show notes for more about our guest. If you're finding value in our podcast, follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and our YouTube channel at Divorce Workshop. Share your questions, comments, or guest suggestions. We'd love to hear from you. For a comprehensive divorce guide, check out our Just Separated workbook on Amazon worldwide. This workbook covers everything from emotions and co-parenting to finances, legal insights, and recovery, a must-have for anyone navigating separation or divorce.